What's up, guys? Welcome back to Faith Family Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Dominique, but you can call me Dom. A lot of times I just say my name is Dom and then people think it's D-O-N, like Dawn, or D-A-W-N, but my name is Dominique. I like to be called Dom. Welcome if you're new here. This video is going to be a little different than what I normally do because I have a question from a viewer that I want to answer, and I told her I would answer it on video. So I'm probably gonna throw over some footage of me pruning my tomatoes, and I'm actually in front of my cherry tomato bed. But the question she asked was, you grow a wide variety of tomatoes and beans. In your next video, could you talk about your thought process on this and what makes you choose what you do? So I have 5 raised beds. When I planted them, they were 3 by 15, so I planted roughly 30 tomatoes on each bed. If you do 30 times, what is that? My math ain't mathing, but 30 times 5 bed, that's about 150 tomatoes in these beds. There is like 2 beds that probably have only 24 instead of 30 because those are determinate tomatoes, and I tried to space my determinate tomatoes out a little further. So let's just say about 125 to 150 tomatoes in these 5 beds. With each bed, I tried to grow 2 of the same varieties in each bed. I definitely have well over 100 tomato varieties. I don't think that I planted up to 100 tomato varieties. Maybe if I'm including my dwarf tomatoes, I probably planted 100 varieties, but with just my paste, my determinate, my beefsteak, my slice, or little ones, like they're smaller than beefsteak but bigger than a paste. I have one bed of those. I have 1 bed of each, and then so I said determinate, paste. Actually no, my paste are inside the hoop house, but I have my cherries, my determinate bed, my beefsteaks, and I guess they're like an in-between. I called them small tomatoes. And then I also have my beefsteak. So that's 5 tomato beds that I have. I grow a wide variety of basically everything I grow, which is like tomatoes, and even this includes beans, because I started gardening 9 years ago when one of my daughters, I think she was either just born or I was either pregnant with her, I can't really remember. And when I first gardened, I was just growing dollar store, Dollar Tree pack seeds, so like regular zucchini, regular tomato, regular everything, and that's how I learned to garden. At the time, I didn't have money for arch trellises or any kind of trellis for that matter, and so I grew a bunch of bush beans. So I became in love with bush beans by growing a smaller garden because I didn't have a way to grow up, and so I liked bush beans because I could still grow beans, but I didn't have to grow them up. Once I got to this homestead and I have lots of arch trellises, I have the capability of growing pole beans, but I have probably only 3 varieties of pole beans, but I have probably 15 to 20 packs of bush beans. That's just because of what I was familiar with growing in my old garden, and because I think a bed of bush beans looks absolutely beautiful. And so I love the look of just having a whole bed of bush beans filling out. It makes the bed, it keeps the weeds down, it makes the bed look lush and vibrant and just big and green from far away. It always looks like, even if you're letting the beans go to seed, it just always looks great. The reason why I grow a wide variety is because I'm trying out different varieties. I love bush beans. I love the way they look. I love to grow them. I love everything about them, and there's so many different varieties of bush beans, and so I like to try different varieties to see which variety I like the best. With that being said, I do love stringless, and as I'm like growing and ordering and trying out different seeds, I realized that some are stringless, some are, you know, with the string, and so that keeps me getting different varieties, trying out different varieties. I've only been gardening here for 3 years, and with each season I'm getting better and better at in gardening in this particular area. This is farther, like probably 40 minutes from where I used to garden before. The soil is different. Everything about how I built these beds were different. It was on a much larger scale. And so just my soil getting built up this year this year is definitely my most abundant year as far as crops, because I've been working hard to every year make my soil better. With that being said, with my tomatoes, it's the same thing. I love seeds. I love trying new things. I love colorful things. And so we do live in South Carolina, zone 8B. It's very hot and humid here, and a lot of tomatoes struggle with blight, early blight, late blight, just any type of diseases, and they struggle with armyworms, hornworms, you name it. Tomato struggle here in the South. And so the reason why I grow a large variety of tomatoes is, one, I'm not a big tomato eater, and if I'm going to grow a tomato, before I wouldn't even grow paste tomatoes because most of them were all red. And so this is my first year actually growing paste tomatoes, but I do have some that are yellow, orange, purple, and then of course red, because I realized that I want to grow make a lot more sauce than I have been the past 2 seasons. And so there are much more red tomatoes in my garden than there were previous years. With that also being said, my kids realize that they like red tomatoes. I personally, every red tomato that I've had is too acidic for me. I have not had like a red tomato that I just thought was like awesome, but I am getting used to eating raw tomatoes. Usually I don't eat raw tomatoes. If I was to go to a restaurant or anything, I would tell them to take out the tomatoes. But with growing a garden, I am building my taste buds and trying to expand them, and so I will eat tomatoes. I've been loving this gold nugget tomato that I'm growing. It's orange, and I've been eating that raw. I've been making salads with it, with cucumbers and tomatoes. And so I'm growing a wide variety of tomatoes, and bush beans for that matter, and everything is because I'm trying to figure out what I like, what works in this climate. A lot of the tomatoes that I grew this year were new tomato varieties from Haas Tools, and the reason why I was growing them is because they said they were disease resistant. Previous years I was growing like all like heirloom varieties, and they would like die on me so fast. So this year I tried to balance it out. I did grow lots of heirlooms, but I also am growing lots of just regular red tomatoes that said it just produces a lot and that it was disease resistant. And the reason for that is because I want to get a big crop of tomatoes, and after seeing other people's suggestions and seeing other people's crops and yields, some of the tomatoes I'm growing is based off of that, and some of the tomatoes are growing based off of me just reading the packs and reading that it said it was disease resistant, or it said it was like built for the South, stuff like that. With that being said, I am growing other tomatoes that is more for northern climates, but they seem to be doing well, like the Wisconsin 55, which is what I mentioned plenty of times on this with you guys, that it's probably my first tomato to ripen red. It's a bigger one. And I would grow it again because that's my first year growing it this year, and I just grew it as a test to see, because it said that it did produce fast and that it was that it would produce fast and a lot. And that's my experience. As I'm growing so many tomatoes, I'm walking through, I'm looking at the names. This is really my first year where I had all my tomatoes still surviving right now. Each year that I've been here, something has always happened to my garden, and this is like the first year that nothing crazy has happened to my garden. Now I still have struggled with grubs with my potatoes, which is what I struggled with the first year that I was here, but at the time I was still building up my soil, so my soil wasn't super rich in organic matter, and I wasn't fertilizing a lot. And so my crops were not big, my plants struggled. Last year I went on a missionary trip and basically came back overwhelmed, and the garden was horrible, and I kind of just let it go mid-season. This year I've been on track with fertilizing, with making sure I'm pruning, with making sure that I'm out here every day. I've I've even been trying to get out here early mornings, which I'm not a morning person, so if you know me, and me getting out here early morning is a miracle. And so and then also, like I said, building my soil. The more you build your soil, the better it's going to be. And so this is basically why I'm growing so many different varieties, is just to see which variety works best for me. And because other previous years, they didn't really have a good chance of showing me which tomatoes I should continue to grow here. Eventually I do want to get to a place where I'm not growing as many different varieties, and I just have like my tried and true varieties. But right now I don't know what's my tried and true varieties, because I've never given them like a full season, a fair shot. And so this will be my first year giving my tomatoes a full like fair shot. With my green beans, I actually only grew mostly green beans as far as bush beans, which is different than normal. Previous years, if you've been here, I've planted all like mostly colorful green beans. So that's like dragon tongue bush bean, purple potted bean, like red, like a red variety of bean, freckled bean, like just all these different colorful beans. But the thing is that they don't produce a lot. And with going into this year, one of my goals was to grow as much food as I can for my family, because my goal has always been to try and grow enough food for us for a year. So the things that we actually do grow. So if we grew peppers, I want to grow enough for a year. If we grow tomatoes, I want to grow enough for a year. With beans, I want to grow enough for a year. And last year, I found a bean called the painted pony bush bean, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It produced a bunch for me. And so this year I have only planted majority, probably 90% of my bush beans are painted pony bush beans, and that was with a purpose and on purpose. With my pole beans, I did plant the purple potted, and I do have this noodle bean, but this noodle bean was sent to me. I didn't even have noodle beans. And I grew, and like I said, I didn't have a lot of variety of pole beans, and so there are some missing spots. I tried the Scarlet Runner bush bean this year for the first time. That didn't really do good for me. It was the first one getting eaten by bugs, so I may try that one again next year, because I do have more seeds for that. But to answer your question, the main reason why I grow a lot of varieties of tomatoes and of beans and basically peppers, like I also do have like 80 sweet peppers, and I planted what, 64 spicy peppers. Now of course those are, I don't have nearly as much variety, but that's still a lot. Like probably I would say 30 sweet pepper varieties and probably 20 spicy pepper variety, no, probably 10 spicy pepper varieties, 10 to 15, and probably 30 sweet pepper varieties. And it's all because I do have some of my spicy peppers that are tried and true, like shishito and Santa Fe Grande, and like jalapeno and peppercini, you know, basic peppers that I do have that are tried and true. But I also grew a lot of peppers that I grew just for the first time this year, like paprika and Anaheim and stuff like that. With my sweet peppers, I love color again, and so I tried to grow a lot of different varieties like red, orange, purple. I don't think I grew, yeah, I do have a golden pepper as well. Basically, I like a colorful garden, and like if you could tell from all of the metal beds I have, I spray painted them because I like to see color. If I'm gonna come out here and sweat and slave over my garden, I want to look at pretty things. And sometimes I would come out here, even though my garden is so lush and it's so beautiful, I think it's so beautiful. One of the things that I want to do differently next year is interplant more flowers, because when I look down from the front of my garden, I don't see as much color. I see a bunch of green, and it just kind of like washes out. It kind of just blends in. Everything blends in sometimes, and I would love to see just more color when I look down. Another thing is I'm gonna be moving all my metal raised beds, because all my metal raised beds are along the fence, and when I take pictures I can't see them all in one place, and so it defeats the purpose of them being colorful and making me happy. And so I'm actually going to be, once the season's over in the fall, be moving them all to one side, so that way when I take a picture they can all be together and colorful and lovely. And so yes, that is why I grow all my different tomatoes and beans and peppers and like even pumpkins. I have 6 different pumpkins over there, and I had more pumpkins. I just only planted 6 different varieties of pumpkins. Same thing with my watermelons. I have over 10 to 15 different watermelon varieties, and I grew every single one. Same thing with my winter squashes. I like varieties. I like different things that don't look normal, like a normal watermelon would be like red. And so to combat normalness, I basically planted, so I do have like a Charleston gray and a sugar baby watermelon and stuff like that, but then I also wanted variety, so I planted like moon and stars, or I planted like the yellow watermelon, orange watermelon. Those are not the names, but just watermelons that look different. And it's just because it makes me happy. If I'm gonna be out here slaving and hot and, you know, working so hard, I want to look at pretty things. I'm a very colorful person. I like colors, and I want my garden to reflect me and what I'm thinking. And so yes, that is my answer. I hope that helped you, and if you have any more questions and want me to do a video, definitely leave them down in the comments. And if I missed anything or I wasn't clear on anything, let me know, and I'll be sure to clarify what I meant. So thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys on my next video. Bye guys.